Today I'm reporting on what happened after I tried to spin up the new Murgatroyd. Not everything went as I had planned or expected, and so I'd like to talk about what actually occurred here. So when I turned on the Murgatroyd after testing it out on the bench, as you might recall, I spun it up and I found that immediately I would start to get power on resets of the Murgatroyd. It would effectively lose power shortly and then reboot after power is regained. And this turned out, of course, to be the pillow block bearing not working correctly. And this had me quite a bit surprised, but the connections on this particular pillow block bearing were so heavily oiled that it made very poor connection to the Murgatroyd. So I had a second one around and I used it instead, and it proved to be much better, but still not good enough. I was getting continual resets, not as often, but often enough to make it not usable. So I had to increase the amount of input capacitance. I ordered online from Amazon some 3300 microfarad capacitor, 3300 microfarad capacitors, and I placed 3 of them on the input to the 12 volts. This providing nearly a full farad of input capacitance. This is compared to the 2000 microfarads I had previously on there. 3 of these things is just barely fit into the box. I couldn't order anything higher than 3300 because of the physical dimensions being larger than was going to fit in the box. So in any case, once that was in place, I have a system now that works well enough that I've not seen any new power on resets. Seems like the bearing, once it starts to break in a little bit more, conducts electricity more consistently. The process of going through this, however, had me very concerned, and so I did an online search on Amazon again and found something manufactured by a company called I can't even pronounce it. It's TIADACENT. And what it's called, it's got multiple names that is listed by, it's called a through-hole conductive rotary slip ring. It's called an electrical brush ring, a rotating electrical connector, a slip ring. Those are all the names given to this thing, and it's pretty cool. I've got it on order now. It'll be in about a month or so. It's coming from overseas. And I ordered the one which has an aperture of 10 millimeters and 6-way, which means there's 6 connectors, 6 wires that it can pass electricity through, and it's rated at 2 amps. I think that may be 2 amps per wire. I really don't know. It's not very well specified. That would allow me to easily pass, though, I only really need to pass 3 amps of current through this slip ring in order to power the Murgatroyd. That's the maximum that my 12-volt power supply is capable of delivering. It should be just fine. That would also, interestingly enough, leave me with extra conductors in this thing that I could use to pass a signal through to the Murgatroyd from the base to the Murgatroyd, or vice versa. So in this case, I'm planning ahead a bit and thinking that maybe I should pass an audio signal to the auxiliary processor of the second Murgatroyd, which would then allow me to do a fast Fourier transform and extract the spectral information, which I could then translate into some pretty interesting light show effects, having their basis in whatever music or sound is being supplied to the Murgatroyd. Any case, once this whole thing was figured out, I moved on, and I was surprised that my Hall sensor wasn't triggering the Murgatroyd. It turned out that the GPIO 17 on the new microprocessor boards that I had ordered wasn't working properly as a GPIO input, and so it wasn't sensing the Hall sensor. And I'm very confused by that because the other microprocessor board I was using, which is virtually the same, they're actually the same board. They're called the SP32 Development Kit C version 4. In any case, it didn't work the same. So in the process of trying to get past this, I chose to go with another GPIO pin. In this case, I chose GPIO number 34 to replace GPIO 17 as the input for the Hall sensor, and that worked fine. And so now I got the Murgatroyd spinning, not doing power and resets, Hall sensor triggering the Murgatroyd correctly, and I went to test out the Bluetooth, and much to my surprise, I was unable to pair with the new ESP32 module. And this turned out, after looking online, because it seems like what was happening was that the microprocessor was getting into some sort of a reset condition. It was lost its little brain and would do core dumps and stuff like that. It didn't do that on the first microprocessor modules in my very first Murgatroyd, but this one it chose to. Just one of the many type mysteries. And this turned out as it was that the target that I set in my Arduino IDE was not set to what I had to move it to. I had to move it to a target called ESP Rover module as the target build, and as opposed to a different ESP target which I had there, which seemed to work previously. Once I chose that new target, everything worked perfectly. The new Bluetooth on the board came up. I paired with it, paired with the Murgatroyd. Well, it was spinning, and everything worked out perfectly. So I want to show you at this point then the final step, which is to check for vibration once this thing is spinning. As it spins, it should not vibrate if the panel is centered properly. And you can check if it's not centered properly by writing a very simple test pattern. What you do is you turn on address 483 on all panels. On panels 1 and 2, you would set address 483 to be red, and on panels 3 and 4, you would set it to be blue. And we'll take a look at what that does here right now. Okay, here you see I've got it set up with blue on and red LEDs, and it's the same on the other side as well, so that my red LED is always on one side, the blue LED is on the other. And when I spin this up, what you're going to see here is that as you look down on it, you're looking for perfect alignment of the pattern that's made on that circle, and the red and blue LEDs should just merge right into each other. If the panel is perfectly aligned, and if it's not, and one doesn't overlap the other, you need to adjust and shift that panel such that that occurs, and it looks like this. When you do that, all vibrations will go away. In any case, that's it for the moment here on the spin. Alright, well that completes the new build of the spin portion of the Murgatroyd. We haven't talked anything about the Infinity Cube much, and have not really gone into a lot more details about the Murgatroyd base, and we will certainly cover those topics in future videos. But I appreciate your watching at this point, and I'll see you again. Thanks. Bye-bye.